Hey guys, what's going on? Hope everyone's had a good week. I'm pumped for some more football this week. But before we jump in, I'm a little late with the episode this week because I've had a crazy busy week. But I'll be back to my usual schedule next week, and I'll be uploading my weekly predictions and top 5 bets as per usual every Thursday morning. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Alright, so since I'm uploading a little late this week, we'll kick it off with game 1 being a Sunday game. We've got Tennessee taking on Atlanta in Atlanta. Once again, Tennessee, they've been really disappointing. I actually predicted them to beat the Jags last week, but they obviously didn't. They couldn't protect Mariota again. They gave up 9 sacks. He couldn't hit a thing himself. This team could actually be ready to bail on Marcus. He struggled again on third downs. They just had too many negative first and down plays. Last week, they fell behind early. They really rely on Derrick Henry to wear down defenses late. And when they fall behind, they have to rely on Marcus more. So, first off, their key this week, they need to get on the scoreboard early. They need to bring the running game and more options into the play calling. And the offensive line, they need to perform better. They need to be able to protect Mariota, but that also comes with the run game. Atlanta this week, Keanu Neal down for the season. Star safety. That's a big loss for them. Matt Ryan so far this season, he's had 6 picks. That's I believe that's the highest in the league. He's been shooting himself in the foot a little bit, but overall he's been pretty good. He had a 122 passer rating last week. That offensive line, they're holding pretty well. The rookie right side doing a pretty good job. Freeman, really good game last week. 16 carries, 88 yards, but they need to give him the ball more, I definitely think. They're both really extremely unpredictable though, which makes this one really hard to predict. The keys are, for both games, pick up the running game. Tennessee allows 4.8 yards per carry to help them control the ball. So they need to stay on offense longer. They need to have longer sustained drives. But overall, I really think the Falcons pull this one off this week. They get a 24-17 win over the Titans. Okay, up next this week, we have the winless Washington Redskins taking on the Giants in New York. So Case Keenum, he hasn't been able to produce the wins. I actually like the roster that the Redskins have, but it doesn't seem to be clicking that well. Terry McLaurin, he's actually like their rookie wideout. He's actually been really good. Most catches, most TDs, and second in yards so far out of the rookies. So they need to really look to increase his involvement. Look to increase Thompson's catches as well out of the backfield. He's really dangerous in space. The Giants actually allow the most pass yards, second highest passer rating. So I think that they should really look to pass often. There's a lot of holes in this Giants defense. There should be a lot of plays over the top if Keenum can find them, to be quite honest. Alright, so Giants. Daniel Jones, first start last week. It actually really seemed to give him energy. His mobility allows them to extend drives where, Eli just couldn't. There were a couple of plays, especially this one on third down. He extended out of the pocket, ran for a first down. That's just something that Eli Manning can't do. Excellent debut. 2 pass TDs, 2 rush TDs. Saquon Barkley, however, he's doubtful against the Redskins. So to come in for Jones, he had 3 sacks last week against Chicago. Evan Ingram, he looked like his main target, Daniel Jones, last week. He's actually the highest ranked tight end so far this season. So Jones is really seeming to gel well with him. I think for them to have any chance this week, they'll need to protect Jones pretty much seamlessly. The Skins have a really, really good pass rush, but I think the Skins pull this one out this week. I think they pull out to an early lead, and the Giants won't be able to recover from it. I think the Redskins pull it out 28-20. Okay, next up this week, we have the LA Chargers taking on Miami in Miami. Melvin Gordon, he actually reported to the team this week. Good news, he ended his holdout. They most likely won't play him this week because they won't really need to be honest. Coming up against a dead last rated defense, they shouldn't have a problem moving the ball. I expect to see Keenan Allen. I expect to see them try to cover him. So after a big game last week, so I think that their other players will get pretty heavily involved in the passing game. to redeem after their really disappointing loss last week. I mean, as you just saw, Travis Benjamin dropping a key pass there. Mike Williams also dropping a key pass. So they need to add more balance to the play calling overall, though. They only ran it something like 18 times overall last week. So against the Dolphins, though, they should be able to get that back on track. Once Melvin Gordon comes into the team, should definitely be back on track. The Dolphins have turned the ball over, the offense, over to Rosen last week against the Cowboys, but their offense, it just still wasn't existent. I don't even know what to say. Like, this is a pretty clear-cut game. It should be a blowout. Sorry, Miami faithfuls. You might get a touchdown this week, though. So, my prediction is the Chargers are going to take this one out, 33-10. Next up this week, we've got the 1-2 Raiders going to play the 2-1 Colts in Indianapolis. Okay, first up, Jacoby Brissett. He's had 2+ TDs in the first 3 weeks of the game, so he's definitely been surprising me. He's been really mobile in the pocket. He's really been strong in the pocket. He's been able to break sacks. Derek Carr in the Raiders offense, it hasn't actually looked too bad, but they've really struggled when it comes to third down. Their defense, however, is one of the worst when it comes to giving up 40+ yard plays. They've already given up 4 so far this season. So the defense has struggled to take away the ball as well. They haven't even got a pick. Their pass rush is pretty good, though. I really like the Raiders pass rush. But you know that Colts O-line is going to be very strong. They seem to love to run the ball, the Colts. So the O-line really needs to focus on trying to limit the ground game, the D-line, and put the ball in Brissett's hands a little bit more. He hasn't shown to be elite yet at quarterback, obviously. So the Colts have relied heavily on the run. They have 149 yards per game so far, 3 really talented running backs. Brissett, however, as I said, he needs to find his targets a little bit quicker. He's taken 6 sacks so far this year. He's not bad at finding those targets, as you just saw. That guy came wide open easily. But this week, they shouldn't have to rely on the ground game as heavily as the Raiders' pass defense, it's pretty ordinary. As I said, 4+ plays of 40+ yards. The Colts defense this week, they also really need to focus on stopping Josh Jacobs. He's actually proven to be a really, really good running back. That's been the Colts' weakness so far in defense. Freeman absolutely ripped them apart last week when they played the Falcons. He ran right through the middle multiple times, gouged them for big plays. But if they can manage to stop Jacobs, the Raiders are terrible on third down. And the running game's key to the first and second down. So I think Indy actually pulled this one off at home with a 30-17 win. All right, next up this week, we have Carolina taking on Houston in Houston. So Houston, they've been actually playing really great offense. The O-line, they've given up less sacks each week than they did the week before. That seems to be pretty promising. They haven't actually been as disappointing as I thought they'd be. But part of that comes from Watson's mobility. He's really, really mobile. He pulled off the Houdiniac multiple times. The Lions actually would have had probably, more against them last week. Oh, sorry, the Chargers would have had more against them last week if it wasn't for his mobility. But again, this week, that offensive line, they need to give him more time, especially with the Panthers D-line. They're coming off an 8-sack game. That's huge. So opportunities, again, should be there for Carolina on defense because Watson's play style, he likes to hang on to the ball a bit. He likes to get the ball over the top. So he needs those routes to develop for him to do that. Carolina's offense last week, it was absolutely outstanding. Kyle Allen, he was great. He spread the ball around everywhere, but honestly, I don't see him giving the same production this week. He's facing a much, much stronger defense in the Texans. This game, however, I think it is once again going to rely on CMC, to be quite honest. He doesn't have his best performances when they rely on him too heavily. He needs to be explosive in certain plays. He can't just be on the field and do everything, so to speak. If they can manage, though, to spread that ball around similar to last week, this game could swing heavily in Carolina's favor. I really do like the matchup with this defense against the Texans offense. So The Panthers really have struggled to stop the run, but they've shut down teams in their passing game, and that's the key to stopping the Texans at the moment, basically. The Texans' running game, it hasn't exactly been their strong suit, but I do expect them to have a good game this week in the running game. I do expect it to be very, very, very close game, though. I honestly think it all comes down to how productive Kyle Allen can be. Prediction this week, I think the Texans take it out 21-17. Okay, next up this week, we have Kansas City taking on Detroit, in Detroit. So the pass rush for the Lions, it's been really good this season. They've got 9 sacks so far, consistent pressure. Offensive line, only 3 sacks on Matt Stafford. Defense has been an awesome job of not allowing those big plays over the top. Their red zone defense has been great too. The ground game, it has struggled a little bit for the Lions, but they've managed to rip off a few chunk plays here and there. So the offensive line does give a few holes. But, you know, they've also struggled to stop the run on defense. So they're coming up against a pretty subpar running game with the Chiefs. They should see a little bit more success at stopping it this week. Their defense needs to play a huge part, though. That really can't be overstated enough. They need to be able to take away Travis Kelce and or Sammy Watkins, because I really don't trust the role players at wide receiver for the Chiefs to provide them with what they need. But with Darius Slake listed as questionable, Matt Stafford listed as questionable, I really think this one's going to swing heavily in the favor of the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they just need a good second corner, and they're set. You know, their pass rush has been great. They're finding consistent pressure, which is, you know, it's going to be key to forcing turnovers this week. Matt Stafford, he just throws it up when there's pressure in his face. They need to find a ground game though this week. They've been a little disappointing, only averaging 94.7. But I expect to see Mahomes pick and choose his targets this week. His second quarter has been great. 51 points in his last 2 games in second quarters alone. Over 450 yards, 6 TDs, 0 picks. I think the Chiefs, they take this one out pretty easily, 31-14. Okay, next up, we've got Cleveland taking on Baltimore. Alright, so both teams coming off a loss last week. So they'll be both really keen to get a win. I honestly think Baltimore have the edge in this one. They're at home. So far this season, we've seen Baltimore just playing old school ball. They'll just run it right in you. Right in your mouth, you know, right down your throat. Coming up against the Browns team, they average just over 100 yards on the ground. But, you know, Baltimore, they've been averaging over 200 on the ground. So they're going to have another massive game, I think, this week. The keys to this week are to get back to what they've been doing, basically. Just keep the ground and pound going to set Lamar up on those RPOs. He loves to run those RPOs. The offense is really built well around him, to be honest. It matches his play style perfectly. They love to run RPOs, as well as the Browns, actually. I've noticed that Baker, he looks a lot more comfortable when he's throwing out of some sort of motion running play, you know, play action. It just seems like he's more comfortable. But lately, it just seems like he's trying to spread the wealth a little too much, trying to make everyone happy, basically. The coaching staff, I think they've been giving him a little bit too much. They need to be able to simplify down their offense a little more. I think Baker will absolutely rip up. This week, they're missing Njoku. He's placed on IR. He's a huge weapon on their offense. So, you know, they're coming up against a great defense in Baltimore. Baltimore have been good, not great, at taking away the ball, though, this season, which I didn't expect. The last few seasons, they've been really good at it. But Baker, he's been a little bit of a turnover machine. 5 picks so far. Not as many as Matt Ryan, though. Matty Ice. Ravens, they can also generate enough pressure to keep Baker on his toes, because, you know, the O-line for the Browns, it's their weakness. They've got a lot of talent everywhere else. I think their defense is actually pretty good, but quite frankly, I think that you know, Baltimore shut them down 35-21. Alright, so just for these next few games, just because I've had a really hectic week, I didn't really get down to breaking them down too much, but I still have my predictions. So for the next game, I've got New England up against Buffalo in Buffalo. These are both undefeated teams. They are division rivals. I think New England, they've just been too strong so far for Josh Allen to overcome that defense, that they've been incredible. What can you say? They're first in pretty much everything defensively. I really think that New England just take this one pretty easily, 27-7. Calm down a little bit of that hype from the Bills. Alright, so next up we've got Tampa taking on the Rams. Coming off a tough loss last week, Tampa head to LA this week to play the undefeated Rams. So I really just don't think that Tampa's O-line, they're not giving him any time this week. The Rams pass rush, it's really strong. Pretty much one of the best on paper. The Bucks D-line though, it's actually been able to provide pressure consistently. They've got 9 sacks so far. The Rams O-line, it's looking a little weak, so they should have their opportunities this week. I honestly think this one turns into a bit of a defensive battle, but I do think the Rams take this one at home, 24-18. Alright, Seattle at Arizona. First off, I do not blame the defense for the Seahawks for that loss last week. If it wasn't for the pick and the return TD, they honestly would have won that game, I think. Coming up against Arizona, though, at home, this always seems to be a really close game for some reason. But we all know Arizona, they're a dud this year. So the Seahawks, I think they shut down Kyler Murray this week. Russell Wilson, he brings it home, 30-10. Alright, getting into the interesting games. Here we go, Minnesota at Chicago. Divisional matchup. I'm actually really looking forward to watching this one. Both defenses have been outstanding so far. They've both found ways to pressure the quarterback often. They've both got outstanding pass rushes. But most importantly, they've been able to find ways to take away the ball, both defenses. The Vikings do have a slight edge in the turnover battle though. The offense, it seems to be the limitation for both teams right now. The Vikings run game, it's really been a bright spot. Dalvin Cook, I do believe he's one of the leading rushers, if not the leading rusher. They rank second in running, so whereas the Bears offense, it's pretty much a struggle all around. I think this game is going to be a real defensive struggle. Lots of short drives. It'll come down to which offense can make a big play, basically. I think Chicago, they are a little bit too limited with Trubisky. Whereas, I see Kirk Cousins, he can play big games. He can provide you a big game. I think the Vikings, they really have the slight edge in the matchup this week, pretty much at every position, except for Khalil Mack, because that guy's a beast. But as I said, it'll come down to coaching. It'll come down to which offense can make a big play. I think the Vikings take this one out this week, 23-20. Okay, up next, we have Jacksonville playing Denver. Denver actually winless. I actually see this roster as the best roster that doesn't have a win so far. A pass rush for the Jags last week. They contained Henry really well. They didn't allow him to push him around and wear and tear them down. Partially, because they just shut down Mariota as well. They got out to an early lead as well. Calais Campbell, he destroyed that middle of that O-line last week. Pretty much the whole D-line for the Jags. They had a huge game. They got 9 sacks. Minshew, he's been really good this season. Looked really great on his passes, his touch balls, on his long balls. The pass rush, as I said, it's been constant and relentless. They're actually number 1 in sacks this season. They have 13 already. Denver, as I said, probably the best team that doesn't have a win so far. They really do have the talent defensively as well to be in every game. The offense just needs to be more consistent. Especially that offensive line. They just couldn't protect Joe Flacco. Overall, I think Denver match up better in this game, especially playing at home. And I think they pull this one out at Mile High with a 24-17 victory. Oh, yes, I love this game. Prime time, Breeze, he's out still. Cowboys, undefeated. Can Teddy do enough? He's looked great. He looks confident. Going back in his career before that devastating knee injury, he was a legit quarterback. I really like this guy. The Cowboys, as I said, they are undefeated, but they haven't exactly played great teams so far. However, they have, one of the most talented rosters across the board. They've ran all over teams. Zeke, he's just been absolutely destroying since he came back. Dak, he looks solid, maturing really well as a leader, actually. This is probably one of the toughest games for me to predict this week. This is really going to be a really good game to watch. I do think New Orleans pull off an upset, however. I think the Cowboys will overlook Teddy a bit much, and he will find holes in the back end of this Cowboys defense. I think it'll be a really, really close game. I think New Orleans pull this one out 27-20 in an upset. Alrighty, final game of the week. Not exactly going to be exciting. It is a divisional matchup, though. We have Cincy taking on the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So both teams, both winless. Not too exciting, as we know. The Bengals, they're trash. They can't protect Dalton. They can't even open up holes for Mixon to run through. They just can't move the ball at all. It honestly looks like they're throwing games almost, like they're tanking hard. But and we all know about Pittsburgh and Big Ben. Kyle Rudolph, he does actually look to be a pretty good stand-in. James Conner, he's been a bit of a dud so far. However, you expect that to change this week, because I do. He's going to have an absolutely massive game. I think he runs for over 125 yards, 2 TDs at least. He's going to run all over this Bengals D, because they just don't seem to care. As I said, Kyle Rudolph, he's looked really good, and he can do his part when they need him, especially against a weak defense in Cincy. They should actually wrap this one up pretty easily, 28-10. Alrighty guys, that's it for this week. Remember, hit subscribe. I will be uploading again next Thursday. I will be including my top 5 bets. As I said, I have had a crazy week, and I didn't get a chance to break down everything this week properly, but next week I'll be back to my usual schedule. So make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the notifications to be notified when it drops. Thanks for watching, guys.